Hi students, today the 12th syllabus to be discussing Unit 10, namely called as Economic Botany. In this Economic Botany, which chapter is going to be classified as plant breeding. See, in early classes to given definition about the plant breeding, even though I am also given once again to definition about plant breeding. So what is the meaning of plant breeding? Plant breeding is nothing but genetic makeup of plants. So what do you mean commonly called as genetic makeup of plants? That means due to introductions of genetic material, the host system or the plant system, by introductions of new gene, how it is altered in the host gene, resulting new plant or new productivities are added. That is the vital role for plant breeding. In the plant breeding, which is chapter today can be classified as commonly called as organic fertilizer. In general, the farmer will must be utilized chemical fertilizer, chemical insecticide and chemical pesticide to be utilized. Due to utilizing such a kinds of chemical, you know that these are generally toxicity as well as is a hazardous substances. For the avoiding those kinds of chemical, we are coming to organic fertilizer. So organic farming is nothing but it is an alternative methods of agricultural system. That's mean instead of chemical, you got to be follow as regarding organic farming. So organic farming is nothing but alternate form of agriculture system or agriculture method. That organic farming, it's originated in the early of 20th century. So the kinds of farming system it must be developing in the early of 20th century. It is nothing but it is a reaction to rapid farming practices, because you are utilizing the chemical, the plant can be easily grow, which grows to produce earlier yield. For avoiding those kinds of system, you should be follow as organic farming. So organic farming, which reaction is the opposite to rapid system of agriculture. Okay. Organic fertilizer or organic farming is commonly called as it is a production system. Such as which maintain good health of soil, it maintain good ecosystem, it maintain good people or population. So organic farming or organic fertilizer is commonly called as production system that sustain. What do you mean commonly called sustain? Once the productivity is coming, that kinds of productivity it must become again and again here. That's a called sustain. So you should be apply as a organic farming that sustain good health of soil. So soil is not going to degradation. Soil cannot be lost any kinds of fertility. If the fertility is lost, mean if you have to cultivate any kinds of crop plants, cannot be produce productivity. So if you are using organic fertilizer or organic farming, rarely it's maintain good health of soil. It's not only health of soil to be maintained, your surrounding also it's maintained good. That's called good ecosystem. It's not only maintained regarding ecosystem. If ecosystem and the soil, if it is healthy, mean really what kinds of population they may be found on the earth, those will be also regarding what the good. In addition here, organic farming is nothing but it depends on ecological process biodiversity and cyclic system which is adapted based on local communities. If it is follow as cyclic, what they call cyclic system, because so many kinds of cycle they can be available. You know that phosphorus cycle, carbon cycle, nitrous cycle. The cyclic way it must be follow that soil mean. Really the soil is always good health. That means commonly called as cyclic system in the local community, in the local system. That rather than use of inputs of chemicals, it may be going to produce hazardous effects. So you should be avoid the hazardous nature in all kinds of farmer or all kinds of farming system should be always accompanied with organic farming. It is a non-toxicity, it is a non-hazardous, it is the easiest way to be producing. Can I go to the next one, commonly called as biofertilizer. What is called bio? This means biological. So what are the definitions of biofertilizer? Fertilizer is derived from biological origin. Or using living organism, you have to be manufacture fertilizer. That is commonly called as biofertilizer. Okay. How the biofertilizer generally produced? Or what are the things to be utilized to manufacture a biofertilizer? It's generally using living cell. Or latent cell. What do you mean? Which things to utilize to be manufacture a biofertilizer? Using living cell or latent cell. That living cell or latent cell, it is derived from efficiency of strain of microorganism or which microorganism they can be processed according what efficiency. There are a number of microorganisms there. All microorganisms not have that kinds of efficiency. So among that microorganism which have to be possess efficiency or which is to be proved that kinds of ability or capability, that kinds of microorganism can be utilized to prepare biofertilizer. So using living cell or latent cell of efficiency of strains of microorganism, that microorganism utilized to different kinds of culture method that can be manufactured biofertilizer. So biofertilizer it can utilize to instead of chemical fertilizer. Okay. Biofertilizer it's also known as or how it will be considered other than the name of biofertilizer. Biofertilizer the other than the name is commonly called as bioinoculants. Then microbial culture, or bacterial inoculants or bacterial fertilizer. So biofertilizer, it must be considered as some another name is commonly called as bioinoculant. What they call inoculant? Which substance to be utilized? Those things it must be present inner to the cell. This is called inoculant or inoculation. So bioinoculant, microbial culture, bacterial inoculants, and bacterial fertilizers. So biofertilizer, it can be possessed the great efficiency. What are the efficiencies are there? What are the efficiencies generally is present to biofertilizer commonly called as? It improves nitrogen fixation. Second thing, solubilization of phosphate. Third thing, decomposing cellulose. So what are the role or what are the efficiencies to be present in the biofertilizer? Nitrogen fixation, solubilization or soluble is making the phosphate, decomposing cellulose. Apart from all kinds of biofertilizer, it's improve soil fertility, it's improve plant growth, it's improve number and biological activities from beneficial microorganisms in the soil. Apart from the nature, why we must utilize biofertilizer than chemical? Because biofertilizer are non-toxic. Biofertilizer are more efficiency than chemical. Biofertilizer, it is low cost. It's not a costly level. It is easy to reproduce and easy to manufacture. That's why instead of chemical, we are using biofertilizer. The classified is going commonly called as classifications of biofertilizer. The biofertilizer can be classified various ways, namely called as nitrogen fixing bacteria, then phosphate solubilizing biofertilizer, phosphate mobilizing biofertilizer, biofertilizer for micronutrients, plant growth promotes isobacteria. Can I classify each and every one? For nitrogen fixing bacteria, it can be classified as free living as well as symbiotic. What are the examples of commonly called as free living is commonly called as Azotobacter, Clostridium, Anabina, and Asta. Those are the examples of nitrogen fixing bacteria from free living. Likewise, the nitrogen fixing bacteria from symbiotic. What is symbiotic? Mutual relationship between two organisms. So what are the examples of symbiotics commonly called as Rhizobium, Anabina, and Azola? Then Third one, associatic symbiotic nitrogen fixing bacteria. The greatest example is commonly called as Azospirillum. Can I go to the next one? Second thing, phosphorus solubilization biofertilizer, or which biofertilizer is responsible for soluble for phosphate? Some of the bacteria is influencing, some of the fungi also influencing. Which bacteria influencing for phosphate solubilization is commonly called as Bacillus subtilis? Which fungi is responsible commonly called as Penicillium as well as Aspergillus? The third one, phosphorus mobilizing biofertilizer. What is mobilizing? After solubilization, the phosphate must be moved from cell to cell. That's called mobilizing and mobility. Phosphate mobilizing biofertilizer. Who will be act as AM? What are they called? Definition means arbuscular mycorrhiza. Which arbuscular mycorrhiza which must be used as mobilizing biofertilizer commonly called as glucose. The next one, ectomycorrhiza. What are called ecto? Ecto mean the mycorrhiza, it must be generally occur surface of roots, or it may be available surface. That's called ecto. It remains inside, so it will be available there. Ecto, that means called surface. Which phosphate mobilizing biofertilizer that must be occur in that surface is commonly called as Amanita. The next one, biofertilizer for micronutrients, or what are the biofertilizer it will be give is micronutrients commonly called as silicate and zinc solubilization. Silicate means silica. Silicate and zinc solubilization. Which bacteria is responsible commonly called as Bacillus? The last one, plant growth promoting rhizobacteria, or which things responsible for promote the plant growth is commonly called as Pseudomonas. What are the examples of plant growth promoting rhizobacteria is commonly called as Pseudomonas fluorescens. So those are things that are responsible for classifications of biofertilizers. Can I go to the next one? Topic is commonly called as rhizobium. Rhizobium is commonly called as, it is a bacteria. Biofertilizer contain rhizobium. It is commonly called as rhizobium biofertilizer culture. So rhizobium, it is commonly called as symbiotic bacteria. So what is the meaning commonly called as symbiotic? The interaction of two organisms, both organisms going to be beneficial. Not someone beneficial, not someone harmless. So what are the organisms interaction? Both organisms is beneficial, is commonly called symbiotic. That's called symbiotic bacteria. Which is the symbiotic bacteria? Rhizobium is commonly called symbiotic bacteria. Okay. That bacteria generally varies occur. Do you know that? Root system. That symbiotic bacteria, it is generally present in inner to the roots. If the presence of the inner to the roots, it must form as a small nodule. That's a commonly called as root nodule. So here is available rhizobium. So if it is occurred to inner to the root nodule, what are the functions it must be carried out? This kinds of characteristic feature is not occur any kinds of plants. This characteristic feature is generally available to leguminous plants alone. So leguminous plants only having the capability for root nodules. The presence of root nodule containing rhizobium, what characteristic features be going on is commonly called as it absorb, it fix atmospheric nitrogen. So atmospheric nitrogen is generally available non-usable of nitrogen. That non-usable nitrogen it fix the root nodules that became convert to usable form of nitrogen. When it can be converted to usable form of nitrogen, that time the plant it must be possess well-known grow. If the plant it can be possess well-known grow means grace produce well yield. So which plant it must be possess rhizobium, that kinds of plants only they can be grow well as it grows produce much productivity. Non-leguminous plants cannot having such a kinds of ability. Which you have to possess that the plants only to be considered leguminous plants. So that kinds of bacteria, nothing but rhizobium bacteria, which are scattered on entire soil. After scattered on the entire soil, that kinds of bacteria, after a short time, it is going to multiplication takes place. After multiplication, how much amount it must produce commonly called as billion and billion tons of rhizobium produced on the surface of soil. After rapid multiplications of bacterium on the soil, whose every bacteria, it can be fixed atmospheric nitrogen in the root nodules. So which plant responsible fix atmospheric nitrogen in the root nodules? Those plant it must be possessed well-known grow as well as well yield. So now come to a plant like this. Where or which plant or which crop plant it's much suitable for rhizobium plant is commonly called as paddy crops. So paddy crops it is well suited for rhizobium. If the presence of this rhizobium in the paddy crops means how much amount of field it responsible to be increased than the normal, responsible for 15 to 40% of yield is increasing. That's a commonly called as kg per hectare and crop plant to be said, the short form. So it is suitable for paddy field. If the presence of the rhizobium, the root nodules, how much amount of field it can be enhanced or increasing is commonly called as 50 to 40% kg hectare for crops. These are things to be considered rhizobium. Can I go to the next one is commonly called as Azola. Azola is nothing but these are generally there are 6 species are there. Among the 6 species, Azola pinnata it is a successful biofertilizer, is an Indian rice field. It's not other. This is a successful fertilizer in Indian rice field. Okay, now come to the point. What is the commonly called as Azola? Is commonly called as free living water fern or free floating. Because these are things which just float on the water surface. It comes under fern. Fern it can becomes under pteridophytes. So what do you mean commonly called pteridophytes? These are things it possess non-flowering vascular cryptogames. Because this is not producing flower, but having vascularized tissue. What is the vascular tissue? Xylem and phloem. Vascular tissues are there, but the flower is not yet to be produced. So to be considered as is producing flowering, but having vascularized tissue. So what is the Azola? Free living water fern or free floating water fern. Okay. Azola, it is associated with blue-green algae. blue-green algae, they can be possessed the association that is commonly called as Anabina azole. Do you know that? Azola is a plant. It is having symbiotic association between blue-green algae. This is commonly called as Anabina azole. So Azola, it acts as one of the important fertilizer in the rice field, particularly in wetland rice cultivation. If you have to be cultivated for Azola means, it increases the yield 40 to 60% kg, hectare or crops. If you have to be followed, Azola, it can be biofertilizer, it increase yield 40 to 60% in kg, hectare and crops. In general, Azola, what is that agronomic potentiality? What I call agronomic means soil practices, soil management. It should be practical. It should be practiced. Agronomic means the soil, it must be give good yield. So, what is the potentiality of agronomic practices commonly called as? For using biofertilizer in the rice field, really it enhances the productivity than normal. Apart from, what are the main functions of Azola is commonly called as? It is decomposing the soil or easily decomposing the soil. That's a capability for Azola. Can I go to the next one is commonly called as arbuscular mycorrhiza. Arbuscular mycorrhiza, it is formed by the association of Phycomycetes. Phycomycetes fungi and angiosperm roots. So arbuscular mycorrhizas, it is formed by the symbiotic association between Phycomycetes fungi and the angiosperm. Do you know that what is the meaning of Phycomycetes? That's a commonly called as lower fungi with aseptate. What is the main capability and the potentiality of arbuscular mycorrhiza? That's all. Easily dissolve phosphates. Where the phosphates are generally occur. Phosphates are found abundant in the soil. So the phosphates who are responsible for breakdown or who are responsible for make as a many piece of the things is commonly called as arbuscular mycorrhiza. Is not only dissolve the phosphate, it is responsible for increasing the availability of phosphorus. So the plant it want to be phosphorus mean who is responsible for enhance that utility is commonly called as arbuscular mycorrhiza. Arbuscular mycorrhiza that can be provide ability to strengthen against pest, against disease, against different kinds of weather condition, as well as it is responsible for offers to water availability. Those the things is commonly called as arbuscular mycorrhiza. Can I go to the last one is commonly called as seaweed liquid fertilizer. Seaweed liquid fertilizer, it's contain auxin, gibberellic acid and cytokinin. So auxin, gibberellin, cytokinin, those will be commonly called as plant growth regulator. Apart from auxin, gibberellin, cytokinin, the seaweeds it must be containing micro and macronutrients. In general, Which type of seaweeds are generally it can be used as a biofertilizer? That is commonly called as a kelps. Kelp means commonly called as brown algae. So brown algae, it is generally used as a biofertilizer. In general, the kelps and brown algae, how much length it will be grow? It may be about 150 meter in length. That seaweeds is not only contain organic compounds, that are commonly called as it's eco-friendly. What is the meaning commonly called as eco-friendly? That substance cannot produce any toxic substances. But it will not disturb the whole environment. That to be say commonly called as eco-friendly. In addition to be here, in all kinds of seaweeds, that means kelps, it contain alginates. You study about the chemicals or chemistry. Alginate is a chemical. This chemical is found in seaweeds. That seaweeds, what function to be carried commonly called as? It's combine metals in the soil. So what I say means, the soil metal combine to regarding what alginates. So alginate is found in regarding brown algae. Alginate combined with the metals in the soil, it is formed as long chain of cross-linked structure. That is commonly called as long cross-linked polymer. Long cross-linked polymer. What is the capability of that kinds of polymer? That polymer play as a vital role is commonly called as break the soil, the number of P's. But because if it is occur, a compound means cannot absorb water easily, so that the cross-linked polymer responsible for break the soil into many P's. When is the form as a piece, it's easily swell up when they get in the water. So when they receive the water, the soil becomes to swell up. Not only swell up, that soil retain the water for long times. Because not easily to allow them. It can retain the water for long time. Apart from that, seaweeds, especially it can be used as organic farming. Why that can be used as organic farming? Organic plants, it's generally produced to carbohydrates in the plants. Or which plant responsible to produce the carbohydrates means that plant it's must to be possess small fragments of soil. Okay, in addition, herbuscular mycorrhiza, it must be containing variety of minerals, generally more than 70 minerals, vitamins and enzymes. In addition, water soaked seaweed liquid fertilizer, what is the main role is commonly called as? The seeds are easily germinate, or the seeds are rapidly germinate, and then it can produce well-known root system. Those are things having the potentiality of seaweed liquid fertilizer. So today we must be classing up to seaweed liquid fertilizer. The next class will be going to biopesticide as well as like this. Thank you.